This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast, a very special edition of the Impact Podcast, because I have one of the people that I greatly admire, Araksya Karapetyan. She's the Good Day LA morning anchor. Welcome to the Impact Podcast, Araksya.
Thank you, John. So nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, and finally we get to do this.
We get to do this, and I'm a huge fan of yours. Every time I'm coming through LA, I watch the news that you're on, that you're anchoring, because I'm so proud of you as an Armenian American that you're hosting the Fox LA News. It just makes me so proud.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Thanks so much.
You know, before we get talking about all the great work you do at Fox LA, can you share a little bit about where you were born and your journey to even getting into this position as well?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Armenia, in Gyumri, which is the second largest city there in Armenia. And following the earthquake in 1988, and then us going to war with Azerbaijan in 1990, and the Soviet Union beginning to collapse, my family and I migrated here to the United States. By the way, today happens to be 30 years of independence for Armenia. On this day, 30 years ago, September 21st, the people of Armenia voted a referendum to proclaim independence from 7 decades of Soviet rule. So it's actually an important symbolic day.
It is.
So we came here, and my grandfather's brother, so my great uncle, had come to the United States following World War II and had ended up, going through New York, ended up in Montebello, and then came to Palos Verdes, which is the South Bay here in California, beautiful area, as we were speaking about earlier.
Right.
And with all of those things happening in Armenia, he arranged for us to leave everything behind and come here. And so that's how I ended up here. Not the typical immigrant story in the sense that we were fortunate enough to have someone who had established themselves in this country. Really, his story is the American dream story. And he brought us over, had laid the foundation for us. We just got to work and were able to succeed based on everything he'd done for us to get us going. So we were very, very lucky and fortunate. And I don't ever take that for granted. I think about that all the time. The reason I'm sitting here talking to you, that you're even interested in speaking with me and what I do every day, goes back to this man who didn't even know us, but felt the sense of duty to his family to, help set them up for generations to come. My children, their children are going to benefit off of his generosity. Right.
And is he still alive?
No, he passed away in 2000. I think it was 13 now. So it's been a while.
Okay.
Yes, he passed away. He was 91. He lived a long life. But he was the patriarch of our family, and his absence is definitely there still to this day. But every time I drive home and I'm on the cliffs of Palos Verdes and I look over and I see this amazing view of the ocean, and I think to myself, we're in paradise. And I think about him every day.
That's so nice of you, because so many people forget the sacrifice that our ancestors made as immigrants. First of all, I believe I always feel closer to immigrants, no matter if they're Armenian, Filipina, Korean, doesn't matter. I have a connection. I think all immigrants feel connected as a DNA, number one. Number two, but it's so nice to always remember who sacrificed before us to give us these great opportunities that we truly have here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you come here, you're a young little girl.
7.5. Yeah.
7.5 when you're here. Talk about growing up in America. You already had some experience growing up in Armenia. How were you received by your friends here? And how did that go growing up here in the greater Los Angeles area?
Well, as a child, I think kids assimilate very quickly, and I didn't speak a word of English. So I remember going to my first day of school. It was a little, intimidating. And oh my gosh, the first day of school, I was so excited to get to wear whatever I wanted, because in Armenia during the Soviet Union, I had to wear this uniform. It was this brown dress with the white apron. It wasn't the nicest, most flattering outfit. And the fact that in America, I got to go to a public school and I could wear whatever I wanted. So the first day of school, I wore this pink laced, just over the top outfit you would wear to a wedding if you're like the flower girl. I remember my mother trying to convince me, don't wear that. It's a little, just people dress a little casually here. Right. Like, nope, it's a special day. I'm wearing this outfit. So we walked to school, and of course, everyone was staring at me. And I said, why is everyone staring at me, Mom? Oh, they know each other here. Everyone knows one another. Not really. They were staring at me because of what I was wearing. Oh. But that day, I can speak English. So they enrolled me in ESL, English as a second language. And I remember immediately not liking the feeling of standing out in that way and being separated in that way. And my goal became to come out of that class as soon as possible. And I succeeded. It didn't take very long for me to get out, because I wanted to be like everyone else and blend in and not stand apart in that sense. So English came to me quickly. I always credit I Love Lucy, one of the first things I ever watched when I moved to America, as how I learned English, because she was such an animated character. And you didn't really need to speak English to watch and follow along with the show. And so I always say she played a role in me learning English. And I began speaking English quickly. And then I got involved in everything, every sport, every activity, every club, just because I wanted to be a part of everything and not miss out.
When was when you were growing up, where did you get your news from? Obviously the internet wasn't a big thing back then.
Not at all. Yeah.
Right. So were you watching your news locally or national? Was there a news anchor that spurred your interest in going into the news industry?
No.
Oh. Okay.
I didn't really grow up watching news at all.
Wow.
So people always say, how did you, get into this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of stumbled into it. I went to Syracuse University in New York. Why did I go there? I don't even know. They gave me a grant, but I always envisioned going to the East Coast for school. So I know you're saying.
Wait. First of all, there's so many great schools that are surrounding you, and you decided on maybe the school that was geographically the furthest from Palos Verdes, California, but they are known for having a great journalism school.
There you go. See it all. I believe everything is meant to happen the way it's supposed to. I did not know that at the time. So when I went to Syracuse, I majored in international relations and political science. Wow. And after that first year, it's so cold there, it's miserable. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I here? And I decided if I'm going to suffer through these winters, I might as well leave with a degree that they're really known for. Newhouse School of Communications is one of the, if not the best school for broadcasting. Right. So that's what I did. I double majored. Political science became a minor, but I double majored, and it was meant to be. But even to the day of my graduation, on that day, I looked around thinking, what do I really want to do? All of these people, they already have jobs lined up. They've been doing these internships at TV stations. I haven't done anything. I don't even know if I want this. So it's funny how things work out. And here I am.
That is really funny. I thought, when I had read your background that you went to Syracuse, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That's the greatest journalism school in America. Oh, she was so focused, and this was what she wanted. And there you go. So you come out of Syracuse. You're still a little bit unsure. So then you start paying your dues. Explain what that means in the news industry.
Yeah, well, it means you have to go to a small town that no one's heard of and cover stories that you don't care to cover and be away from family and make no money. something I thought I could avoid doing because everyone always thinks they'll be the exception to the rule of how things work.
Right.
So I was stalling because I did not want to do all of the things I just said. And, you couldn't get a job here in LA. It just doesn't work that way with no experience.
Right.
But I decided I went from no internships to all of a sudden I had 3-4 internships at the same time. This is my personality. It's all or nothing. I'm all in or all out. So when I go hard, I go hard.
You go right hard. I love it.
So I did all of these internships and I went to Armenia that summer in 2006. And while I was there, the story is that you go from this house to that house, you're eating, you're drinking, you're just like doing all the touristy things, not really getting a sense of what life is. So I had a camcorder that I grabbed that we had with us. And I started just kind of for fun going around talking to people, created a little project for myself. I went to visit an orphanage and an elderly home and talked to people on the street and did all kinds of things. I wanted to go visit a jail, but they're like, you can't just go to a jail. This isn't America. Like you don't just walk into a jail and say, hey, I want to take footage. Like,
right.
So I have all these tiny tapes to this day that I always say I'll turn into something one day, which I probably won't. But that experience ignited the passion for journalism. So when I came back, I made a tape. I sent it out to all these places. I ended up packing up the car and just going off to Idaho Falls, a place I've never been in my life, had no place to live, didn't know anything about it. And I just went and signed a contract and made $18,000 a year and lived by myself. And there were no other Armenians there. They had no idea what Armenia was. They couldn't pronounce my name, but it was an amazing experience because at the end of it, everyone in town knew where Armenia was and everyone could perfectly pronounce my name. And I had memories and friends I made that will last me a lifetime.
You bring up a great point, Araksya. You talk about when you first came as a little 7.5-year-old girl and how you assimilated and became part of everything, did everything because you really wanted to become part of it all. Does the immigrant experience does it help people succeed because you build up a certain resilience and grit that maybe others don't need to have or never even had a chance to hone? Look, you came to Palos Verdes and you became part of the community and you went to Idaho Falls and you literally replicated what you did as a 7.5-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I haven't thought about that, but you're right. I think a little bit, of course, the immigrant, probably that experience and what you've been through and you want to belong and you want to work hard and prove to yourself and others that you're capable of everything and anything. But I also think it's part of the personality. It makes sense now, looking back, I'm doing what I'm doing based on my personality, which I didn't see before. My curiosity for things, my interest in people, wanting to know the side I don't necessarily agree with because I'm curious as to why people may feel the way they do. I like that. I embrace that. I don't shy away from what is unfamiliar to me. I run toward, where the excitement is. All of those things are part of my personality.
Right. That's so interesting. But it's so funny. You were informed by Lucille Ball. So to me, you could have gone the other way and became the next Elaine Bennis or Julie Louise Dreyfus or somebody like that. With the personality that you have, that could have been right in the cards as well. So, so you pay your dues. Idaho Falls. Where'd you go next?
Portland, Oregon.
Wow. Okay.
Which was great. First of all, for those who are not familiar with the markets in broadcasting, so the smaller the town, the higher the number in the scale. So Idaho Falls at that time was 182, I think, or 187. And then Portland was a big jump. I went from that to 50, number 50, which was great.
Wow.
And Portland was exciting. I mean, of course it rains and the weather's not great.
Right.
But there was a nightlife, there were restaurants and things to do and, exciting people. And so I spent 2 years there. And ultimately, my goal was to make my way back to Los Angeles. In the end, it came down to New York, LA or going abroad and being a foreign correspondent. And I went with LA because all of my family's here. My husband's family's here. We weren't married yet, but we were dating. And also I wanted to be part of the Armenian community. There's a huge Armenian community here in Los Angeles, the largest Armenian community outside of Armenia, with the exception of Russia. Russia has a bigger one, I believe. But I wanted to be part of something where I could belong and, highlight the stories here, bring up issues that otherwise would never get brought up. And that's what I ended up doing, thankfully.
So I've watched you so many mornings and all the great work you're doing. We're going to get into that in a section. Before we do that, you're a mom, you're a wife, you have two young, beautiful children?
Yes.
Okay.
Sona and Sevan. Sevan's 5 and Sona is almost 2.5.
Okay, so give us a day in the life, because those are a wife, a mom, a professional that not only is a professional and has to be on her game every day, but also you don't have the luxury of, when you don't feel like dressing up or looking your best, that you don't have to. You have to present your best every day. So how do you juggle all three of those? Give us a little bit of a day in the life of.
Well, it is definitely challenging, and not everyone can do it. Not to say that it's impossible. It takes a lot. It takes a toll, especially with me, because I'm trying to always be involved in so many things. It's not just going to work and coming home. I'm always juggling events and activities and charities and that sort of thing. So the people who help me, thankfully, are my family, my husband, my mom, my sister-in-law, my sister, my whole family. If it wasn't for those people, I couldn't do what I do. Right. But basically, I get up at 2:30 in the morning, which is crazy. And immediately, it's not like you slowly wake up and, make a cup of coffee and convince yourself, what am I, like, I just go from 0 to 60 immediately, because every second counts in the morning. And I have everything already set, what I'm going to wear the night before. I can't waste time. And I just grab and go, get to work. Because of COVID, we don't have hair and makeup right now. Before we did.
Wow.
So before I could come in and open up my laptop and prepare for the show, and they would get me ready. But now I have to do that myself as well. So it takes up time, but a lot of multitasking. So I'm listening to news, I'm reading, I'm going over scripts, I'm preparing for a segment. Producers are coming in, talking to me. All of that's happening while I'm getting ready to go on the air. And I get on the air at 5 a.m. and then we go straight through 2 hours straight of traditional newscast with my amazing co-anchor, Tony McEwing, who's been in the business, he always says, longer than I've been alive, which is kind of true. And and then we still have the show to do after 7. I do segments throughout until about 9 o'clock or so. And in addition to being on and being aware of what's going on in the world, because you need to know a little bit about everything. It's not just sitting there and reading the teleprompter. You have to have a little knowledge about everything. And after that, I'm always working on other projects, stories I'm putting together, interviews I'm doing. I head out of here around 11 in the morning, but I don't just get to go home and rest. That's where it gets hard. Believe it or not, work is my fun time. It's the time where I come to life. And then when I leave, I have the mom job to do. And that is the hardest job, much harder than this. So I get home and sometimes I sit in the driveway for a few extra minutes to mentally prepare for what's about to happen when I walk through the front door. Right. And then it's pure chaos. I walk in and it looks like a hurricane hit my house. I have all these dishes and the floor is covered in food and everything is a mess. So I immediately clean everything up, put everyone back together, glue it all back together. And then I have to entertain the kids. I have all day with them, which is wonderful, but I'm also tired. So I feel like this zombie kind of, that's the part I wish I could change. If I could do a better job of getting more sleep, which is a little harder right now with young kids. But if I was well rested, I think I would be a happier person. I feel like all the strangers get the best of me, even you. We just met, but you're getting energetic
know.
Araksya, the fun
Right.
Araksya. But when I leave, I'm tired Araksya and I don't really want to talk and, have fun. I just want to relax.
I can't blame you. I mean, my gosh. So, I mean, like, so now you're home with the kids all day. What
Yeah.
time is dinner and what time do you turn in?
Not early enough. Last night, for example, I went to sleep around 9. That's not much sleep. But part of that was my fault. I could have been asleep by 8:30, but I had to squeeze in an episode of The Sopranos.
The Sopranos. You're
I know,
watching
20 years too late.
No, I'm just saying that's interesting that you had to squeeze it in. Like you could have waited
I
another
love my
day.
mob shows.
Oh my gosh, that is so cute. Had you ever watched it before?
So back when it was actually on,
Yeah.
I had seen episodes here and there, but I never had really sat and watched it from beginning to end. So I'm
Right.
binging it. You know how everyone binges everything these days.
Yeah, I know. Your generation is it's all a binge. It's one big binge.
It's all a binge.
It's all a binge. Do your kids, let me ask you about your children. Do they watch you on television? Do they know that's mom up? Do they know that you're on in the morning?
They do. My daughter, my older one, calls me a newser.
A
A
newser.
newser, yes.
That's an interesting term. I've never heard that.
It is. I know. She's so funny. I do her hair, braid her hair or get her ready when I'm home. And she always says, you should stop being a newser and be a hair saloner. You do such a good job with hair. She just makes up her own.
Unfiltered. There's no filter. They're telling you.
It's quite funny though. They do watch, but not always. I think when I first came to Los Angeles, my family never really quite understood what it was that I was doing away from home because they couldn't turn on the TV and watch me. So they didn't quite understand. And so when I first got here, there was a lot of excitement that, oh my gosh, like we actually get to see you. And they still struggled with the fact like, okay, you went to work for 8-10 hours, but you were on for a minute, 32 minutes when I first started reporting.
Right.
What were you doing all that time? You don't understand. I have to go to a location, get the story, do the interview, write it, edit. They still have a hard time with that. Now that I anchor, they get to see, hours
More
of
you.
me on TV. So they're having an easier time understanding my job. But yes, initially there was so much excitement that they could actually turn on the television and see me. And it was all worth it, I guess, because I was constantly being encouraged to leave whatever it was that I was doing and move back home. They supported me. I mean, financially they had to, I wouldn't have made it.
Right.
They supported me and they didn't stand in my way, but I think they still just didn't quite get it because all my life I was told to be an attorney or doctor, which is the typical immigrant thing you get told.
Right.
But I will say the one person who from the beginning told me to keep going, it would be worth it, was my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but my husband. He always said, just keep, put your head down, keep working at it. It's going to be worth it. You're going to be good at this. And he definitely supported me from the beginning.
That's so nice. That's really, really nice. For our listeners and our viewers and our readers, however you're consuming the Impact Podcast today, we're so lucky to have with us today Araksya Karapetyan. She's the anchor for Good Day LA, Fox in LA. And Araksya, do you still have family in Armenia?
I do. Yes, I do have family in Armenia. My immediate family's here in the States. Right. But I do still have family there, and I haven't been there for quite a while. And I had hoped to go, and then I became pregnant with my second daughter, and the doctor advised me not to. So I missed out on that opportunity. And a lot has happened, obviously, with COVID, as well as the past year. We're coming up on the anniversary, the commemoration of when the war began in Armenia last September 27th, 2020. Which were followed by just 44 days and after of just the worst, I think, anxiety I've ever experienced in my life. To do the job I do and to be dealing with that, it was a lot for me. Just coming to work and reporting on stories that sometimes felt not important for me or frivolous or silly or what the latest viral video was. while something of mass importance was happening all these miles away. And then working really hard to try to bring those stories to light for this community and to make people who are not Armenian care about what was happening so many thousands of miles away with so much history that people couldn't comprehend. It was a lot of work and pressure and stress. And it was the hardest thing I've probably had to experience in my adult life.
I want to cover those two topics. You brought up two very important topics. I want to cover where we are in Armenian history right now, where we think we're going, and I want your take on that. But before, I want to say that I'm constantly so proud of you, because when I watch you on the news, one of my favorite segments that I've watched you on was when you had virtually an unknown Armenian named Nubar Feyan on, who I was blessed in the October of 19 to meet when I was in Armenia. I was with him at some events that he was hosting, and you hosted him on your show and gave him great exposure in LA. And let's be honest, I mean, if there's going to be a Nobel Peace Prize, I mean, talk about a guy who deserves it. I think he, in many ways, as the founder of Moderna, was one of the great conquerors of COVID-19, one of the greatest tragedies to ever strike the whole entire world as we know it. I mean, I loved your interview with him, and I love that you continually talk about your Armenian heritage and bring up stories that are relevant to our history and our future both. Talk a little bit about, before we talk about Armenia, talk a little bit about the organizations that you're involved with, why it's so important to never forget our roots as Armenians, and to always represent.
Well, you know, our history, going back to the Armenian genocide, the reason you're here goes back to the Armenian genocide. As a result of the Armenian genocide, Armenians are scattered all over the world. And therefore, we have to work extra hard in order to preserve our history, our heritage, our culture, our traditions. It's a big challenge for all of us because we go into the different countries and different communities and we assimilate, but we always have the sense, at least I feel, speaking for myself, a sense of duty to keep our roots alive. It's a bit easier for me to do that. I was 7.5 when I moved here. For example, my sister and my cousins, they were 9 months old, 1 year old. They don't have this same longing and the same pull that I feel towards the soil there. I literally feel this pulling from the roots there in my heart. And so it just comes naturally to me to want to do stories that highlight Armenian issues and causes and organizations. I do it because I want to. I also do it because I feel as though I have this platform and I need to use it for the betterment of our people. Right. So there's that, but then there's, I have moments, I have to be honest with you, John, where I think about, well, my kids, how am I going to instill what I feel in them? They were born here. They right. haven't been to Armenia yet. Who knows who they're going to marry and, what happens with their children and their children's children. So sometimes I get really sad when I think about that because I can only control what I can control now. Right. I can't control what happens later. But I really want to make sure that we preserve our heritage. So I have these, deep moments where I think about and I go back to our history and what happened and why it is this way and why we live where we live and do what we do in a different country, yet we feel this sense of belonging yet to the motherland, right? So it's a unique situation, I think. And I feel it's up to me to help people in our community to have exposure and a voice. So if we are going to book a therapist to talk about a segment, I'll find an Armenian therapist and suggest, hey, let's give this person a shot where otherwise that person would not have had a shot. It's so important to have representation.
It is. And you're doing a great job of it. That I've always felt when I first moved to Los Angeles from New York, I was a chairman of the Western region of the Armenian Assembly. And I always felt that we were so underrepresented in media and in politics, by the way. Yes. And I still feel we're greatly underrepresented in politics.
Yes.
So it's so great to have you as a brilliant and beautiful voice that continues to shine in a very major market, which is great too. You're doing this on a big stage. So I'm very grateful for what you do. And I know there's lots of other Armenians that are as well. Talk a little bit about that though, because I was in the same position you were many, many moons ago when I was much younger, of how do you instill upon your children all the luck and the blessings that we have to be here in America, probably one of the greatest countries on this planet, but
Absolutely.
also never to forget their roots. My children, I always encourage to, and I, help them go back to Armenia numerous times, and they want to go back. They want to buy a house there in the future. They want to, when are you going to start taking your children over there? Like, what's in your mind? Like, how have you mapped this out?
I mean, if it wasn't about, I can't take extended time off. If I could, it would be to spend a good chunk of a summer there in my ideal world.
Yeah.
Because I think for them to have the development of the language, they need the exposure, they need to be around it.
Yeah.
Right now it's becoming challenging because they're going to school and they're surrounded by English speakers. And although I try really hard to only speak to them in Armenian and have my family only speak to them in Armenian, it's this constant battle. And I have to push and push. And, they do these Zoom classes with a teacher in Armenia twice a week, 30 minutes, which is great. Yeah, it's a wonderful, it's wonderful.
Cool.
It's a great program. It's called Tutag. Tutag in Armenian means parrot, actually. It's like written as to talk, but Tutag means parrot.
Oh my gosh.
But it gives jobs there in Armenia for these teachers, but it also gives them an opportunity to interact and engage with someone and speak the language aside from me.
Right.
But, again, this is where you have to work even harder and push even harder if it's important for you, which it is for me, to have them speak the language. I mean, even I just speak English all day long. I used to be fluent in Russian, and I came to this country and my Russian completely dwindled and faded away. I still can speak a bit and understand it. And grammatically, I hesitate to engage because I know I'm probably going to make many errors, but it's still there deep down. And if I just was exposed to it, it would come back. So, language is such a wonderful thing, and I don't want to lose it, but when you don't use it, you lose it.
That's true. That's really true, unfortunately. Talk a little bit about social media. Social media wasn't around when I was young, and I even
Me either.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's become so big. And what's so interesting now, Araksya, is I find my friends are breaking out into different layers of. Some of my friends say if they don't watch the news, they feel uninformed. If they watch the news, they feel sometimes misinformed. And now so many people are just focusing on social media as their news delivery service. How does that play with your career now in terms of, you used to be just called a journalist? Well, when people in your position were journalists, but now, as you've pointed out to me before we went on the air, you're more of a news personality. How does that bridge happen? And how do you balance being a qualified journalist, both educationally speaking, and with all the right credentials, you paid your dues, but also being a news personality in a very Hollywood market?
Well, first of all, I have this love-hate relationship with social media. I think if it weren't for work, I wouldn't be on it. Believe it or not, I'm actually more of a private person than it appears, but because it kind of has become part of the job, it goes along with it. It's become part of my life. And I find myself, okay, I haven't posted for a while, I better post something, kind of that mindset. And I get really angry. Like, why do I have to feel that way? Why do I have to feel like I have to post something? Why do I have to feel like I have to get followers? Why do I have to feel like people need to like something? I think a lot of people have this battle now, but really for me, it was part of my job and is part of my job. So I do this balancing act really where I do a little bit of news in my postings because I feel people expect it from me, but I also find that people are more interested in the personal side of my life, right? So with the kids or the behind the scenes of what happens at a TV station or behind the scenes of my life when I'm getting ready for work or what have you, how I spend my weekends. So it's this balancing act. And, I also use it to highlight a lot of Armenian things. Otherwise, that would never get attention. So
Right.
I have to pick and choose when to do what and how much of it to do, not to get people to turn away. There's a lot that goes into it. I've also found that, I have a different following on Instagram than I have on Facebook and on Twitter.
Wow.
They're very different. What I might post on Instagram, I might not necessarily post on Facebook, and vice versa. And every time you post a selfie, which I hate to do, believe it or not, but I do,
Right.
because that gets the most attention. And so it's this crazy thing where you want the important things to get attention. So you better have a following. And in order to get a following, you need to also engage in frivolous activity, which is like a selfie or your outfit of the day or what have you, things that are silly. But it's this cycle, and you're feeding the beast constantly.
Wow.
And you're trying to keep up. And it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. It was my New Year's resolution, and I've done a pretty good job of it, where on Fridays, I completely disconnect until Monday. And it is a cleanse.
I've heard you talk about that on the air.
Yeah.
You've talked about that.
It's so wonderful. It's this mental, emotional, I call it a cleanse for the soul. It is so great. And I encourage everyone who does social media to take a time out. It's
like a digital sabbatical.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes, and you become distracted by it. Instead of being in the moment, you're taking a picture or video to post, but you were never in the moment because you were too busy trying to capture the moment. I know. I lose my mind.
I was at an Armenian wedding on Saturday night, and the groom's father wasn't watching his son toast him. The son was giving the most heartfelt speech. He was videoing it with his camera. I'm like, put the camera down, put the phone down. Listen to your son. He's pouring his heart out to you, thanking you for being such a great father. I mean, it was, so you're right. And what you're doing, is because you're a public personality. Yeah. I mean, like you said, first of all, it's fascinating what you said. Most people don't understand that. Facebook versus Instagram versus Twitter, the science behind the different platforms, you're absolutely right, Araksya, is totally different.
Completely.
But then, the sheer, just the keeping up with the numbers and the feeding the beast, that has to be mentally exhausting. There was a
time here where they were monitoring, COVID hit and everything kind of changed, but they were monitoring our social engagement, and all the newsroom here in Los Angeles literally had this giant monitor and board where it showed in a 24-hour cycle who was most engaged and who was number one. And
come on.
No, I'm not kidding.
You had to see a scorecard every day?
Yeah, every day you walked in and that was in front of you. I know. And then COVID happened and everyone, went and started working remotely, and it didn't even matter and no one cared. And I don't know what happened to, it's not on anymore. I am sure it still exists somewhere on the web,
but there's no one that misses it. Let's be honest. No one misses it.
And I was number one like for a long time, but it's because I was constantly posting, replying to every comment. And it's before I had kids. So I had the time. I had kids and I just don't have the time to respond to every single comment. I just stopped. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So
talk about where we are as a country. I'm so glad you brought up that it's our 30th anniversary of independence. That's such an important milestone, but we did go through a tragic war last year, and we're still living with the aftermath of that. Where do you feel that, you still have family there? I have so many friends and relationships there. Where do you feel that we're going, and how can we help our country move past these bad chapters onto a better future?
Well, just speaking on just a personal level here, I just think that it is these moments that you realize how much the country of Armenia has gone through. And it was a very terrible, awful year that Armenia was forced to face and deal with. And so many innocent young men and women lost their lives. So much blood was spilled. Armenia is very wounded right now. physically, emotionally, mentally. It's tough, but I think, today, in looking back and reflecting on things, the importance of staying united and focusing on the good. There's so much noise and negativity out there, but seeing the light, finding the light, you being the light, those are the things that will help Armenia make progress in the long run. There's so much there, so many young children and young adults with so much talent and skill sets, and you want them to feel like there is a future and they have a future. And so I think it is our responsibility, again, as diasporans, to lend a helping hand. I'm not just talking about financially, money-wise. I'm talking about just visiting or showing the skills you have and what they can achieve and how they can get there. Just always being engaged with the people there, because what happened last year, it's difficult. Even right now, just I have PTSD from it. Honestly,
Yeah.
it was really bad. So,
Araksya, what are some of your favorite organizations in America that you're involved
wow,
with?
there's so many. That's the thing. There's so many amazing things.
Right.
Children of Armenia Fund, which I've been working with for a while, they're so great, and they're based out of there in New York. They are wonderful. They do so much work for the rural communities of Armenia. I mean, really giving these kids who would never have an opportunity like they do now.
Right.
They have these smart centers they're building. They're helping even people from Artsakh and the displacement of the families. They do so much work. There's just, it's like I have to get a list, honestly, because there's just so much. I've done so many stories, like the Armenian International Medical Fund, where they go and they do cochlear ear implants for children and soldiers now.
Wow.
There's a doctor here, a Japanese American doctor, who on his own, pro bono, goes several times a year to Armenia and does these surgeries for free. He's the most amazing man, but he changes these children's lives. And if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't be able to do it. And they're always doing fundraising because they need these implants. These implants they're not cheap. City of Smile, that's something helping kids who have cancer. SOAR, which is an organization for orphans. There's just so many. It's like if I could go on, but there's so much out there that, and I'm always posting about them and sharing as much as I can to highlight some of these amazing organizations, because people need help. And especially post-war, the people who didn't end up losing their lives lost limbs or had such trauma that if not dealt with for generations to come, that's going to be an issue. So there's a lot of need for help there.
Araksya, how can our listeners and viewers find you on the news and also find you on social media so they could follow you and continue to learn about all the great things you're up to and all the important things you're doing?
I'm most active, I would say, on Instagram. That's my favorite social media outlet. Just with posting stories, you get snippets of life and news. It's quick and I'm most engaged with that. So that's just Araksya Karapetyan, common spelling. You just find me there. And then Twitter, I'm least engaged with. I honestly don't even look at Twitter anymore. So don't even bother. Don't waste your time.
Okay.
And then Facebook, you will find me there as well. Usually I check in there once in a while. It's a public page, so it's not like I have to be your friend. You can just go there and you'll follow me along. But you can also, stream our show. You don't have to be in Los Angeles to watch in the mornings. If you go to foxla.com, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. actual LA time. If you hit the live little button there, you can actually watch the show for real and real time.
For anywhere we are in the world, we can watch you.
Yes. It just
That's
makes sure
awesome.
that you're watching the, Pacific Standard Time, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Right. Araksya, you're just, I have to just tell you, that's called the Impact Show because we have people that are making important impacts on this planet. You obviously are making such great impacts. I'm so proud of you as an Armenian American, and I'm just honored to have you on today. I wish you continued success, great health, and I want you to come back on and can share your journey with us as you evolve as a professional and keep doing all the great work you're doing. Thank you so much for being with us today.
John, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for the opportunity.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com.